Okay, so this tutorial is going to cover a few things. In part 1, we will talk about weight painting the ground to add grass to it, but it's a particle system, so it can be used for anything: trees, grass, flowers, whatever. Anything you need a particle system for, this is a good way to start. The second part will be fixing weight paints on a model if you accidentally messed them up somehow. And then the third part will be depth of field. And I may go ahead and show you subdivision while I'm at it and how to fix that. So I'll add timestamps in the description in case you need to just skip ahead. So for now, we're going to do grass, weight painting for grass. I've already got an area here that I'm going to use for this, and I already set the material so you don't have to watch. And I've also got a piece of grass and some flowers because I thought it'd be nice to have some variation. Now, this is 2.8 because I need to use Eevee because Cycles crashes for some reason for me. I think it's my CPU. But you can do this in Cycles just as easy, and I don't think there's much of a difference in how it's done, and if there's a point where it may be different for Cycles, I will tell you. If there's a point where it may be different in the ones before 2.8, like the UI, and something's different in a way that you should find it, like on a different tab or something, I'll tell you. But it shouldn't be too different because I learned this in 2.79 and then I came to 2.8 and I just knew how to do it. So it can't be too much of a difference. So I hope that made sense. Unless I'm not going to try and convince you all to use 2.8 because 2.7 is something that a lot of us became accustomed to. We learned in that, and moving to 2.8's UI is just kind of difficult because it's so different from the older Blender versions like 2.79 and things before that. So I get that you don't want to, okay? I still am learning 2.8 because things are so different. But there's not really too much of a reason not to start trying to learn it. And the way I started was I still did things in 2.79. But then I opened them in 2.8 and worked on them more there so I could learn where everything was. So if there was something I couldn't find in 2.8, I did it in 2.79 and then I opened it in 2.8. Until eventually I got so used to everything that I knew where things were. I still don't know where everything is, and I miss a lot of my hotkeys, but you can add them back. Like, I made a hotkey for turning off auto smooth. Like I had in 2.79, I had made one over there as well, and any of the hotkeys that you need to move, you can do that. I'm not saying 2.8 is easier to work with, but if you want to use Eevee for either the same reason I do, where Cycles doesn't work for your computer for some reason, and just crashes Blender, then Eevee is a lot easier to work with. It's got the real-time render, which isn't like the Cycles version where, you know, you're in rendered view and everything's noisy, and you need to check your lighting, but you can't, and stuff like that. You can do that in Eevee really easily. It doesn't lag. It's just like looking around a regular scene, except you can see your lighting. I think you might be able to do it in the Cycles view on here too, but I haven't tried. I know people stick with Cycles because the shadows are more realistic, I think someone said. And if that's what you want, then that's fine. Stick with Cycles. Nobody is telling you have to switch to Eevee. In fact, you can use Cycles in 2.8, so I really think it's a good idea that if you want to continue using Blender, you at least try just a little bit at a time, trying to learn 2.8, because some things are just improved a lot here. So after that random rant, which I'll timestamp so you can get past, although I probably should have told you that at the first, I just didn't know it was going to be that long. Now we're going to do the weight painting. Now, I've put the scene in here and put the materials on it, like I said. This is just a random part in Elwyn. This should be water here, but we're not going to bother with that. I have my camera set up. The reason that I have it set up this way is because I'm going to show you depth of field in a moment, and I just needed some stuff in the background that would make it more obvious how far back it is. So let's move this out of the way. Now, you need to have your ground selected, and if you need to, you can hide everything except the ground, but I wouldn't do that because you wouldn't want to put grass where like inside the trees are. So I would select the ground. You can probably hide these because they're just in the way if you want to point down. So see, there we go. Now, if you need it, you only want grass where the camera sees. Okay. So because of that, you can go to your camera tab, and I would probably it's right here. Go into your camera tab and move the size up so you can see where the camera goes. It doesn't change anything in how it renders or anything like that, but it shows you where the camera is going to end. So that way you know what's going to be in the camera and you know where to weight paint. So select your actual ground, and in 2.8 this is easier. I'm not trying to change your mind, but in 2.8 this is easier because it does kind of show the ground texture through the weight paint, so you can see that you're painting on grass. But it's pretty much the same. It's the same process for any other versions, I would think. So what we want to do now is go up here, turn on weight paint. For you, it'd probably be down here if you're using 2.79. It's a good idea. You don't have to keep this. You can change it. This is just... Oh, I didn't want to do that. You don't have to keep this. You can change it. It's just that it'll help you see, probably. You can kind of see where the... Set it higher if you need to. Because you can see the textures through it. And you know where the grass is. There we go. Okay, so what you want is where you want your grass needs to be painted. Don't worry about being too sloppy, we'll fix it. Now, it doesn't all need to be red. Red is where it'll be like, oh yeah, we absolutely have to put the grass here. And then green or yellow is like, it can go here, but it mostly goes to the red. So, you can turn down the strength. If that's the way you want to do it. Up here, where it says mix, if you set that to subtract, you can remove it, like there's too much or something. You're basically just painting where your grass is going to go. Most of the grass will go where the red is, though. But if you've ever been outside, you know that grass isn't like perfect. Grass isn't perfect, and it's not all in a straight line, and it's not all the same length, so paint where you want it, and then we'll fix it up. Now, if you go here, you can see that the grass is going to go out back here, so we need to get rid of that. I probably don't really want any up there on that mountain either. I'm just doing this for some variation, although I don't want it to sparse anywhere. Now, if you want to make sure it doesn't go inside your trees, you can set this to subtract. If you need to, you can do this from the other side with Control 7, and I'll show you the bottom side, so you can see where the trees are, so you can delete it. Because even if it's inside the tree, it's still going to count as one of your particles, and you don't want to have to use extra particles just because you have that. So there's one other way to do this, which I learned from a Blender Guru tutorial, where instead of doing this, you could do gradients, so you have more grass up front than you do in back, and that works too. So if you want to do it that way, I suggest watching his meadow tutorial, which is a good tutorial anyway, and he's probably, well, he definitely knows way more than I do, so I suggest it anyway as an extra step. Now, if you get out of here and go to object mode, it's too bright because I set that too bright. There we go. So now we need to add our grass. If you are in 2.79, select both of your or all your grass that you want to use, and then you'll hit Control G. And for you, it'll bring up a thing on the left that says you're making a group and to name it. So name it grass. For us, it's making a new collection if we're using 2.8, which is fine. But when you go here, let's find it. Particles, new. You can change the name if you want. I usually do separate ones for separate things, like if I've got like 3 different kinds of grass, sometimes I'll do 3 different particle systems because I want less of one grass and more of another, or I want to make one way taller or something. I make a different one for flowers so I can have less flowers than grass, things like that. You want to switch it to hair and then click advanced. This is how much grass you're going to put, but we'll do that in a second. We need to go down here to vertex groups. I didn't name the group when I made it, but that weight painting you just did, on the vertex groups tab, or on the object data tab under vertex groups, it'll make a group, and that's the weight paint you just did, and you can name it. You don't have to, it just makes it easier to find if you have a bunch of stuff. So grass, so now it's only where I painted an outside because weight painting is weird. And then under, I think, render, yeah. On here it's render. Let me check 2.79. Okay. Or under 2.79, it is still under render, but it looks a bit different. In 2.79, you would want, instead of clicking this, which on 2.8 we'll click collection, because that's where our grass is in a collection. And down here we'd pick our collection, which is grass. Which that's both, because I didn't make 2 different ones. You would need 2 different collections, or you could put it as, just an object and just pick the grass or the flowers, whichever. But I did in a collection this time. But in 2.79, you would pick, there's like a line of different things you can pick, and you can pick halo, line, path, whatever. Group or object will work exactly the same as in 2.8, so there's not much of a difference there. It's just that instead of a drop down, you have to push a button. So over here, we have different options. We can pick how many we want. We can go overboard and have so many. For this, I'm going to go for 100 right this second, just so I can look at the other stuff. For rotation, we want to check rotation. We want to change the phase, and then we want to randomize the phase, because that's random how they're turned, because you don't want them turned all the same way. Down here you can change the scale and the randomness of a scale. You don't want huge grass all the time, okay? So some of it'll be taller. If you also go down here, where's my vertex groups? If you also go down here under length and pick grass, it'll make it shorter depending on the color of your weight paint, like red, yellow, whatever. And so this is what I have. But right now I only have 100, so if I wanted more, I could put 1,000. And then you see, that's all your flowers and grass, because I put both. You don't really need to go overboard, but it's your render, so it just looks nicer to have some 3D grass. It doesn't have to be a metric ton of it. Because you got your grass textures, yeah, but you don't need to cover the entire ground like a carpet. Just some is nice. And if you're not getting any here, it's probably because this length is on. You can turn that off, or if you want to leave that on, you can just change the weight painting. If you want to add more or whatever, you can just weight paint. Now in cycles, it's going to be a lot harder because for some reason it slows me down a lot. So if you weight paint with your particles on, it's probably not going to be good times for you. But over here it's fine. So now I've got a ton of grass, and it's probably too long. But at least it's you know, it's random size and random rotations, so it looks more natural. If you were to do one for flowers, you could have less flowers and more grass. You know, sometimes you're still gonna get where it doesn't look like it's you know, it doesn't look like it's what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't look like it's covering in a way that looks normal, and sometimes the problem is that there's not a lot of subdivisions here for your weight painting. But if you have that problem, you can just go into tab in the edit mode and press C and select where your grass is going to go, and then you can just subdivide that. You don't have to subdivide the entire map. And sometimes that'll help with how your grass looks. Like I said, it only happens sometimes. Like sometimes it'll look like a checkerboard where the grass is placed, and you have to go and subdivide to get that fixed. But you don't have to do it every time. It does look like they're, I don't know, to me it looks like they're more, you know, placed more naturally, but I may just be imagining that, so I don't know. I don't know why that looks, I hate the old stuff because it looks so bad. Okay, so now that we've done that, why is that black? Oh well. Okay, so save your file, obviously. This is what we're going to go for right now. I taught you how to put the grass down with the weight painting and all that. I probably sped through it a lot, so if you do need help, ask. You can ask on YouTube, you can ask on our Discord, you can ask me on Twitter. I even have one of those Curious Cat things, so you can ask anonymously if you're shy, okay? I'll link everything in the description. Right now, we're going to hop over to try and fix weight paint on a character. Okay, so for this we had to come into 2.79 because weight painting a body is difficult to me in 2.8 right now. I don't know how to do it yet, so we're going to do this in 2.79. So here we have the lovely Damayanti. She's going to help us with this. So you need your body to be in pose mode, your armature, and then you click your body and you go to weight paints. Now whatever bone you click on will show you the weight paint for that bone. So for this we've got this shoulder here, and then for this we got this, which moves this, and it shows you, you know, how strong that weight is. So we're going to move this down a little bit because over here I have deleted the weight paint so that I can show you how to fix it. And the thing is that this I didn't delete all of it. There's still some in there, so that's why it moves a little bit, but not the whole thing. You need to make sure that you're checking bones that would move this. Like for instance, if you have hair and for some reason when you turn the head, it still, you know, doesn't move all the hair, then you would fix the weight paint on this one, but you would also fix the weight paint on the neck and then also the bottom part of the neck. You would check all three because they're connected. Whatever bone can reasonably move that area needs to be checked. So for this, we know it's going to be this bone and then probably this bone, as you can see. So we'll fix this bone first. Now, you won't always have a guide, but for now I can just click over here and see, yes, it's not a really strong weight paint. So over here we need to do something similar. Since you won't always have a guide, you're just going to have to figure this out. For me, I just do it till it works. So let's go with mix. Be careful, because if you do one part, it may move something else. Always check around. See, now we got this part working. It's not working the best because we still need to. You can see over here that this needs to be under here. But we've got some over here by the breast, so we need to move that. And then that may be a little too dark, but it's the whole thing. So now we'll do the arm. It's kind of okay, other than this little spot poking out. We can see that this should be the shoulder, and a little more red right there, but it should go down to about here. So we need to do something similar. But be careful what else you get, because sometimes it'll paint the other side. Okay, that's too red. It's still kind of weird up there. I think I have too much weight paint, so we're going to take a little bit off. Add a little bit more. There's like a cut there. It's probably because we didn't remove doubles, so I don't know. We'll check. Usually on human females, and probably other races, you don't want to remove doubles on the entire thing because it'll mess up the weight paint on the hands, which apparently now you can fix. So, but I just want to check and see if doubles is actually the reason. And it looks like it is, because it's not tearing apart now. And it works. So that is the how to fix weight paint part. I'm sorry that it's not more in depth, but I really don't know a lot about weight painting people. And there's a ton of tutorials out there about it. So I suggest you just go on a binge watching spree of weight painting tutorials if that's really what you need to know. But for now, this is just how to fix small problems. Okay, so this is just a quick thing on smoothing out your models. We'll use a subdivision surface modifier, but it's going to make holes, and we'll have to fix that. So we'll go over to the modifier tab and go to subdivision surface. You can set it as high as you want. Usually I go 2, but 1 will work, and higher. And you can see we have random holes like right here. So the way to fix that is you go to tab. If you didn't set your pose as the default pose, then you may need to click these 2 buttons here for it to not jump out of the pose you're using. So that's on the armature one. Because if your pose isn't default, it'll go back to the T pose as soon as you hit tab. So you can click these 2 and it'll stay like this. And then I would switch to faces down here. Select the faces around it. You can do this part in 2.8, but I just had 2.79 open. Select the face around it. Select it by right-clicking. Select it by right-clicking one of the faces, and then hold Shift and right-click all the faces around it. And then W, remove doubles, and then this will work. You may also have this issue where you've got a line. Just do the same thing, and it'll fix it. You will mainly have these holes and lines on fingers and ankles, and the neck, where the neck meets the jaw, and on the side of the neck, I guess, and sometimes the wrist. Yeah. So you just fix it the same way on every single one. If it's some characters, you can just select the entire character and remove doubles and it'll work fine. But human females, that doesn't work for some reason. With the normal FBX, I think it works fine on the if you export it to XPS. But if you export it to FBX and just keep it as FBX, it will not work. It'll mess up the fingers real badly. But as you can see with the subdivision surface, it makes the fingers more normal. They're not. This is without. So you see you got chunky, blocky fingers, but if you turn it on, you got smooth, normal fingers. Sometimes this is a little bit weird with the texture, and there's ways to fix that as well. But for right now, it's just do the best you can. If you need to edit the texture, there's another video on that, which shows you how to fix the textures on the model and save them for later. This might mess up the face too. See, there's dark areas. I don't know if that's there. Well, I guess it's there before you remove doubles, so it's more apparent after you use smooth, so I don't know why that is. So you'd probably be better off just fixing the holes by themselves instead of doing the whole body. But like I said, just be careful on the hands. If it's a human female, or probably anybody really, because I'm sure it happens on other characters. While we're working on a character, or actually you could do this with any texture, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to fix the textures so that this helps sometimes. Don't expect it to be like a fix-all kind of thing. I learned this from someone in the Render Discord. Their name is right here. So I'll show you how to do that. For this, you want to select the folder that the actual texture is in, and then it'll make a new folder for the new textures. Over here, make sure that you have CPU selected, and this is the other settings that I'm using, and then just press start. Okay, it should be done now, so you can just close this. You need to change the textures to the new ones, which the folder name will be weird like that. And sometimes it makes it better, sometimes it doesn't help at all, but if you just need help with it, if you need help with textures, that's a good thing to try. Okay, so now we're on to the last part, which includes depth of field and maybe changing the focal length of the camera. So we need the stuff in the back to actually look like it's not close to her, and it's kind of difficult to do that and just with a regular focal length. Sometimes you need to pull this down and just zoom in more, But you have to be careful on that because it'll kind of stretch her out, maybe. Make her look like you're looking through a fishbowl. Now that looks further back. And you can go either way on this. You can go, you know, make it further back like that, or you can go forward. Sometimes you need to do that for different reasons. But I usually go something like this to make stuff in the back look further away, and then that is the focal length. So, you know, down will make stuff look further back, and up will make it look closer, I think. I'm not too sure. Some people pull it up anyway, but I go down instead of up. Which sounds weird, but ignore that. So, that seems about good for this. So we're going to zoom in. And this will be our render here for final, but we need to make the background not be the focus. She needs to be the focus. So there are two ways, well, there's probably many ways to do this. The two that I use most often are, one, the very first way I learned was adding an empty. So Shift A and then empty plane axis, and you put it on her. Oh. And you can set that as your focal, or some people use a plane. Cat from the Discord told me that, or Catnip from DA, same difference. And just put it inside them. You can do it that way and use that as the focal. I don't think it matters what you use. It's just that you need something that the camera focuses on. And I'm just going to go with an empty. So you would select your camera and go, where is it? Depth of field. And here you can either use the eyedropper and click what you want, or you can just type it in here. So I'm just going to type empty. And then this will be your f-stop here. If you're using cycles, that's all you need to do is edit this. But if you're using Eevee, you do have to go over here and click depth of field. And then back on the camera tab, just turn this down. The more I turn it down, the blurrier it gets. But you don't want it ridiculously blurry, obviously. You want it to be obvious that there's stuff in the background, but you don't want it to be in focus enough that you can see that instead of the person you're rendering. You can also do this by setting your camera back to a normal size and then turning on limits and doing it that way, but this is the way I do it. It's just easier for me. There are specific numbers you should be using here, but I never do. I just do it till it looks good, and that's probably not for the best. So that's how I use depth of field and focal length to make it look like stuff is actually in the background.